holds such a powerful allure over most people. We've seen it time and time again that fame causes people to do some pretty odd things sometimes, extraordinary things other times. We've seen the man with his whole face pierced and piercings, or a tattoo that covers his face, or a tongue cut in half, and that's only sometimes to gain recognition. Other times, fame draws people to act in more extraordinary ways than they ever thought possible. However, in the case of John Wilkes-Booth, fame drew him to kill President Abraham Lincoln. John Wilkes-Booth was not born an inherently evil man, nor did he have anything in his upbringing that would suggest he's going to do something treacherous and awful, such as kill the president. But throughout his life, it was his passion for the Southern cause during the Civil War and his desire to be famous and remembered forever that ultimately led him to commit his final and most heinous act, the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. John Wilkes-Booth grew up in a large theatrical family. He was the 9th of 10 children and grew up in the South on a farmland. His father, Junius Brutus Booth, was also a famous theatrical actor, and growing up, Booth grew to resent his father. You see, being the 9th of 10th children, it's not always to get the attention that you want or the attention that you think you deserve. And Booth, numerous times, is quoted saying that his father didn't pay attention to him enough, his father didn't groom him to be the actor, but rather focused on the older brothers. And this really got down into Booth's under skin, and he was even quoted at an early age saying, "I have a burning passion to be famous," and that's coming from a child. And so his resentment against his father also stems into the fact that his father was an alcoholic while he was growing up, and he was known for always playing the villain role in theatrical plays. And this comes as an interesting fact because when growing up, John Wilkes-Booth said, "My father is such a great villain on the theater because he has so much practice with it at home." But as the quote goes, we all inherit traits from our parents, and John Wilkes-Booth would end up inheriting the trait of loving to play the villain, of which Shakespearean villains were his favorite. Growing up, John Wilkes-Booth grew into a strikingly handsome and talented actor. Now, many of us in this room don't quite grasp the extent of his fame. I just thought, oh, he's a theatrical actor, but the reality of it was theater was pretty much it back then. It would be like a movie star. So while walking on the street, people would see him, know his face. He was famous for that time. It'd be like running into a celebrity. But the fame wasn't enough. He didn't feel like the recognition and stuff he was getting on the stage wasn't enough. And his acting helped grow into his passion for the Southern way, Southern lifestyle, and ultimately his supporting of the South during the Civil War. He primarily acted in the South. He grew up in the South. This is where he had his largest fan base. And he also had deep beliefs in the Southern cause, saying that slavery was morally correct and beneficial for everyone, enslaved and free. Now that's a hard concept to grasp at this time, but back then that's what he believed. He wanted to help the Southern cause any way possible, but he wasn't a soldier, he was an actor. He was the theatrical type, so obviously he couldn't directly contribute from the war. So he believed that taking down the Northern leader, Abraham Lincoln at the time, was his best way to make an impact. He believed that Lincoln was bent not only on wrecking the South and its way of life, but also on extinguishing the liberties of all Americans through the suspense of habeas corpus and other wartime measures. So in Booth's twisted mind, capturing Lincoln, which was the original plan, was the best way to unnerve the North and cause the South to regain its confidence during the war. As I said earlier, fame was just not enough for Booth. He constantly in his journals wrote about how, "I want to be remembered, I want to be famous forever." It was almost a sickening obsession with fame and always being remembered. His combined desire with being famous and his passion for the Southern cause ultimately forced him to change his mind from kidnapping to killing Lincoln. One historian wrote, "It was perhaps inevitable that he, Booth, should turn again to his childhood fantasy, making a place for himself in history by toppling a colossus." So this almost could be predetermined, but no one thought really that Booth would take it this far. The nation was in turmoil in the Civil War. The South was losing, and Booth was growing more and more agitated. In fact, he was present at almost all of Lincoln's famous speeches, where Lincoln urged the nation to heal, to accept freed slaves, and to grow as one rather than be separated. And while he was in the audience listening, he felt as though his ears were almost bleeding at the words and grew more and more angry and sickened with Lincoln as the leader and the way that the war was going. And he realized that at this point there was no turning back. So this brings us to April 14th, the night of the assassination. Shortly before entering the Ford Theater, a patron was at the bar with Booth and would later recall it as a normal, just run-in with a man. He recognized Booth and made the mistake of saying, "Oh, you're an actor. Your father was a great actor. I remember him because he died, and your brothers were all great actors." And Booth got a little irked at this while he was drinking, looked over at the man and said, "When I leave this stage tonight, I will be the most remembered and famous man in America." Then sneaking through the Ford Theater into the booth, he committed the act, pulled his deranger out, pulled the trigger, and through the smoke watched as President Lincoln's head slumped forward and he died. He then, in theatrical fashion, jumped onto the stage, grabbed his knife, showed it to everyone, and snarled, "Sic semper tyrannius," which translates to "thus always to the tyrants," before escaping across the stage. On the run, Booth was eventually captured in a barn, and he would go on to die believing that what he did was correct. He thought that killing Lincoln would solve all the problems and that he would be remembered a hero. He read the newspaper clippings every day and was obsessed with what they were saying about the villain who killed Lincoln. And this kind of made him mad because he thought he was going to be a hero and didn't realize people would be angry with the fact that he just was the first official assassin of a United States president. Up to his death, he believed that he would be a hero and not the evil, crazed, and egocentric assassin that he is remembered as today. The prospect of fame is a powerful allure. Booth was not born evil, nor did he have anything happen to him growing up that would specifically point to him becoming evil. Yet his passion for the Southern cause and the allure of forever being remembered put him as just that, an evil man.